Okay, so we talked about this earlier. Okay, now there is one more important issue that happens. Okay, and this happens, so you can see this whole impact of on the profit and the return on capital employed, on time and cost, and all of these. And so when we are looking at measuring what is here, we should also understand how it impacts both of this. When we go into profit and ROCE, there's one more issue to be considered. When we look at profit, it's primarily, this is one of the ways you can calculate net operating profit, and a lot of it is looking at what was your, what do you say, what did you earn, what did you spend, all of this. But when you look at ROCE, it is also looking at capital employed. It's looking at how you do your working capital management. How do you get your money how do you ensure that money is cycled quickly enough that your capital employed is minimized? So if I am using an approach where my productivity and production are measured and I am able to reduce capital employed because of good management of time aspect, my ROCE will go up significantly more. So when you look at it from a profit perspective, it's just looking at from the one dimension, which is mostly all these factors you see here. When you look at it from ROCE, not only are you impacting the operating profit, but you're also impacting capital employed because you're using more efficiency to turn the capital around, because you're billing faster, collecting your money faster, doing things faster. So improved productivity will really have a big impact on ROCE because it impacts the numerator and the denominator. Okay. Now, as I said, there are several influences on productivity. Ideally, we should be measuring total factor productivity, okay, which is kind of what we would do for record keeping. We wouldn't measure, it would be very difficult to measure total factor productivity if we wanted to use it for monitoring, because it takes effort. To do your final project accounts, that total factor productivity is required. Now, total factor productivity depends on several other factors. These are just to show the number of influences there can be, but labor productivity is a very significant influence on total factor productivity, including other factors. And you'll find several other factors influence labor productivity, whether it's manpower, equipment, lot of things impact labor productivity. So again, rather than only focus on total factor productivity, focus on labor productivity for monitoring requirements. Okay, so if we go what we are calling, so far we have been at the operational view of productivity. We are saying that productivity is at the operational level, and there are several factors which influence this at the operational level. So for example, I've just listed a few here, whether we talk about late start or early quit, which means, do we actually start our sites at the time we are supposed to start? There's always a lag. There are always breaks. Do we, stop work exactly, or do we exceed, or, when this? So actually looking at the touch time is important. A lot of time is wasted on waiting for inspection, unavailability of tools and materials. Okay, and we can go on. Okay, so a lot of these which you can read, we can discuss, but I think many people can understand and relate to all of these factors, whether what causes idle time, what causes excessive travel, slow work or rework. Okay, we can take any of these points for discussion, but there would be numerous examples on all of this. And these actually contribute to what we call as lost time on our projects. And in another way, they also correlate with wastes in lean. Yes. Okay, they correlate with waste. But in a traditional view, this has been a very, what we call the operational. Okay, we also need to get a system view. The system view is when we look at lean as a whole production system, and not just productivity of an individual activity, but the whole flow of things through the system. So we need to keep both views in mind. Sometimes it's difficult only to look at the system view and expect improvements to happen. So a lot of times what we kind of advocate is that we start with the operational view and then move to the system view. Because if you only start with the system view, it's kind of too big to handle in the beginning. But operational view alone will not cause large impact. Okay, so both are required. So ultimately we need the waste view from a system level, as well as we had discussed this earlier, the overall lean thinking philosophies. Okay, so this is the ultimate system view which we have to apply it at the, like we said, at the project level. Again, challenging to do so, but that's where we need to be. Now, and in terms of as we go forward in this course, these are some of the things we will look, not just looking at operational view, but how do we start looking at it more and more from a system level view. Now, just to summarize, I think if you could understand that monitoring production and productivity are important for cost and time control, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this lecture. Production is easier to calculate and monitor, but does not control cost, profitability or ROCE. Okay, productivity is more challenging, but controls all of these elements. But ultimately, we have to monitor both. Okay, and in most situations, labor productivity is a good indicator, but be careful where it's equipment intensive, where you can monitor equipment easily, where today you have a lot of control systems, you have automated monitoring systems. Equipment productivity is also a very good indicator, which is something which sites are doing and should keep track of. So again, it requires judicious analysis, thinking, understanding what productivity you're going to measure when you're on a project. Okay, just using a formula, using a standard method, you should question the method and go to the factors which affect your operations, your project, your requirements. And ultimately, the operational focus should transition to a system level focus. Okay, it's fine to start with operational focus in the beginning, but consciously the effort to move to a system focus is required. Okay, I'll stop here with this. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take it. Okay. So this is a supplementary module. Okay, please go here. You can find readings, additional readings on this topic, and more discussions on production, productivity, and other things which are relevant to this. Okay, thank you.